Shall we start?
Ok, oui, peut-être que tu commences, François.
Okay, so let's say good morning to the USA, and so thanks for this participation in this special US session. I think it will be very interesting because now we get the final results about music instrument disinfection. Thanks to your great contribution, Nam and Consumer, we are proud to have this unique worldwide study on how to clean and kill the virus into wind instruments, but not only wind instruments, also accessories and other instruments. Yes, your great contribution really helped to do this, so you will get all the results of this. And then the team also wanted to give you some flavor about the second study we did, which is about music practice, both instrument and vocal. So I think it's also interesting to share the results. I guess you have many results from Colorado in the States, but this also will give you some flavors about what happened in Europe. So again, thank you very much first for your great contribution. It was possible only thanks to your contribution. And also thanks to the scientific team who's joining there and who did the presentation, because they worked really hard for almost 1 year now, because all this has started 1 year. It's Professor Charles, who did the study in Marseille, could not join for personal reasons, but I assume you will have all the data and answers to the questions you may have. So thank you again, and I think Fanny now wants to explain how the 1.5 hours will be spent.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support. Thank you also for your understanding of use of English. I'm very proud to introduce this meeting. You'll have a very last update of our works. As François told you, there was a first big part of the work on the disinfection study and another part of the work about vocal and music instrumental practice, music practice. We are going first to present you the disinfection study, and then we'll take questions, and then we'll present you a second part of the works, and then we'll take again question. If you want to write your question down, you can use the chat also. Okay, maybe one slide before, Michael, please. Yeah, so we are now, as we worked a long time with NAM, now we are fully aware that we should tell you when the no second subscription will this meeting be placed for agreement or commercial practice that may restrict competition, or for practice constituting abuse of dominant position in accordance with European antitrust law. I didn't repeat that. The second disclaimer is to explain you that the work, the result we give you is the result we have today. As you're all fully aware, there's a really evolving nature of the knowledge, both related to the Sars CoV-2 virus and on the characterization of musical practice. So things can still change, and the interpretation is not frozen. Thanks. The full program is a multidisciplinary program since April 2020. What was the aim? The aim was to put up together scientific research, always linked with professional questions and needs. And it was to be addressed to authorities to help them to take rational decisions. And it was also, and maybe mainly, offering practical solutions for musical and instrument makers, repairers, and dealers. So the work is done on 2 parts, and the team. The team, these are the 7 great people have been working together very hard. The core scientific team with Michael Jousserand, who is here from Buffet Crampon. Milena also here, and she will talk second half. She also works with Buffet Crampon. Romain, who is not here, who is head of innovation department of ITEM, who are a center of musical instrument making and repair learning. And the rest of the team, there's both myself and Jacques Carbonneau from CSFI and Nicolas Drouin and Camille Delmas from the Force Musicale. Force Musicale is a union of opera and orchestras in France, because for the second part of the work, we work hand in hand with the musical world. And if you take a good look, we are very well balanced between male and female on this project. So 2 parts of the job I already told you. Part 1 about musical, about disinfection, and second one, instrument and vocal practice. Ta-ta-ta, a very nice virus. Okay, the study, this first part of the work has been sponsored by first the musical instrument world. So thank you all for your support, because we wouldn't have made it without you. And then it was also supported by the area of Île-de-France, some public funding. Thank you very much for that.
So I will continue the presentation. So I'm Michael Jousserand, as said Fanny. At first, I'm sorry for my French English. I do not hesitate to ask questions in the chat if you don't understand myself. So briefly, just why a disinfection study? So as we know now, it was a new virus, and transmission modes were and are still not well known. And at the beginning of the pandemic, we had different information and about how we could clean or disinfect instrument and other things, but we were not sure what was really working against COVID-19. And also there was a lot of different information about the virus lifetime on materials. So as you know, a musical instrument could be played by different players in different contexts. For example, at first in production process, traditionally, especially for wind instruments, they are all tried before to sell. Also in the shop, musicians could want to try instrument in exhibition and in music school. There is some instrument could be shared. And then there was also historical and old instrument, which one could be shared, and big and large instruments, I would say, like piano, harps, or drums, we are all the time shared. So as you know, musical instruments and parts are made from different materials and coating, and which one could be damaged by disinfection process. That's why we, that's why we needed to find solution compatible for different materials, which one will not damage the instrument. So when do we need to disinfect? As soon as the instrument or the accessory has been used by only one person. Sorry, I don't see my screen. Okay, one person other than its owns, loan, share instrument, accessories, you could disinfect your instrument. But in all other cases, as long as the instrument doesn't change the user, it's not useful to disinfect. But cleaning and maintaining the instrument accessories regularly remains a good practice, even outside of an epidemic or pandemic period. So how can I disinfect? There are mainly 2 types of processes. First one is contact methods. In this case, a virucidal disinfectant is generally used associated with a mechanical cleaning, mechanical action of rubbing or whipping a surface. And there is also non-contact methods, which include electromagnetic wave, UVC, for example, heat treatments, or treatment using a gas or mist as ozone, for example, or the last one, quarantine. You wait until the virus disappear. To date, contactless methods are not recommended, utilized except in the medical or industrial fields, and present risk requiring important precaution. So in our study, we have chosen to investigate only on disinfectant efficiency, heat treatment, and quarantine against SARS CoV-2. So as I said earlier, we really wanted to make tests on the real SARS CoV-2. So we have to find scientific partners, and that's why we were able to work with Unité des virus émergents in Marseille, in France, which one is a biosafety level 3 certified scientific laboratory, and is we're already working on COVID-19 and published some paper early last April. So all the experiments we will show you were performed on a real SARS-CoV-2 and by experimented engineers as Boris Pastorio, Franck Touré, and supervised by Professor Rémi Charel. So Professor Charel is the head of this program. Just a few words about him. So he's MD and PhD, is specialist in vector-borne and zoonotic viral disease. I will not read all, but just to say that he's author of more than 300 peer-reviewed articles, and now he's the deputy director of this Unité des virus émergents in Marseille. So we did a study in 6 modules, and just to tell you the target we wanted. So at first we wanted to compare the efficiency against SARS-CoV-2 about 7 different products as a suspension test. Then based to know which disinfectant is more efficient than another one, we tried to different protocol on real instruments, clarinet, mouthpiece, or reeds. That means we really put the virus inside the instrument. We did the disinfection protocol, and we look after if it remains virus or not. We also investigate heat treatments at first on different materials, on copper and copper-based allowed, a plate in an oven, and then we after this models, we wanted to test on a real instrument, a brass instrument, a trumpet, and to try to find portative and inexpensive techniques. Then there is module 5, which one is about quarantine, and we have chosen 15 different materials used in the musical instrument and parts, and we had a look about how long the virus stayed infectious. And at least there is a new modulus, which one was not at the beginning. It's about the determination. Okay, I don't see. No, sorry. Okay, it's about the determination of the virus could go inside the wood, and if the wood could release it. So about module 1, we compare all these different disinfectants. So there is ethanol, isopropanol, there is liquid bleach, there is also electrolyzed water, oxygenated water. We tried 2 soap in different concentration. So you have the chemical formula in the middle, the concentration of the active principle, and on the white, on the column, there is the efficiency. So what is called virucide, I mean request by the standard EN 14476, it's a reduction of 4 logs. That means 10,000 copies of the virus. So what you can see, it's all is green. It means you had the reduction of 10,000 copies of SARS-CoV-2 in less than 1 minute for the 4th one. A really bad surprise was oxygenated water, because at the beginning it seems like a good candidate, but even after 3 minutes, the reduction was only about 100 copies. So it could not be called virucide regarding the standards. And for the soap, you see at the bottom, so soap, it's not one active principle, it's more complex, so all soap could be different. That's why we try to evaluate two. So we can see that the first one, even a dilution of 110, you had a virucide effect after 3 minutes, so it's longer than the first one. And the second soap, we had to use it pure to have a virucide effect, even 3 minutes. So as a conclusion, we can say that ethanol is a propanol and a chlorine-based product as bleach gives the best result. Oxygenated water doesn't meet, and soap could work on a longer term, but it depends on of its composition. So after we did, as I told you, a test on wind instruments. So first part was on clarinet. So for that purpose, we had to cut fourth clarinet in ABS and in wood in the long to be able to put some virus on it. And after we closed them again, and we followed the protocol you can see on the left. So at least we use a swab. We impregnated it with alcohol or different products we have tested. We put it 5 times inside the inner bore, and after we open the clarinet and we look everywhere if there is still a live virus. So from this test, we can say that the following products, I'm sorry, I don't see each time what is at the bottom of my screen. That the following products were efficient enough. So we test alcohol, ethanol, and isopropanol, but also dimethylammonium chloride, DDCA. We did test also on mouthpiece, and especially ebonite mouthpiece, because this material could not be used with alcohol-based disinfectant. I mean, it's not recommended. And we test the protocol offered per Vondoren, and which one you put for 10 seconds the mouthpiece into a bleach, but yes, into bleach. And the conclusion is that the protocol described for ebonite clarinet mouthpiece disinfection is capable to reduce the Sars CoV-2 viral load by at least 4 logs in 10 seconds. So it's really efficient, and it did not damage the mouthpiece. And in this part, you can also after clean it with cold water. So it's really safe and really efficient. We had also quite a big issue about weeds, because at the beginning we were considering that we don't need to be interested about weeds because it should be personal, and you take and you put on the you put out. But for example, double weeds player as oboes or bassoon, it happens a lot of times that the student ask the teacher to try their weed, or the teacher make the weeds for the student. So that means you could have exchange of these things that you put on your mouth. So we test different products, and we find one product, which one is electrolyzed water, but in fact it's make chlorine, but a really low concentration, about 0.05%. And we validated that this protocol was efficient after soaking 3 minutes in this kind of liquid. So then when the modules about heat treatment, so we did different combinations. So we had got a plate of alloy. You can see copper, gold, brass, and nickel silver, and we put a quantity of virus on it, and we tried different combination of time and temperature. So here you see the last result. We also tried lower temperature. I mean, yeah, I'm sorry, it's degrees Celsius. so we start at 50 degrees, but there was no effect. We went to 65 degrees, it was not good enough. And here you can see that if we want to be sure on all these 4 materials, we needed a time about 30 minutes and 90 degrees C to have no any more virus in life. And at the beginning, we also were thinking that it could have a correlation between the copper content, because copper is known as a virucide or used for doors or things like that. But you see here in the 4 materials, more copper in the pure copper on the left. And in fact, from our results, was 70-30 had got the best result. So then as we told you, we wanted to find a practical way to do thermal treatment everywhere, and for less expensive materials. So we did different things. The more efficient we found it to use a survival coat and heat gun, I would say. And you can see the result on the left. So the number 1 is it's not trumpet, in fact, it's cornet without heat treatment. And the 2, 3, 4, it's where there was heat treatment about the protocol we said, which one was able to reach the 90 degree for 45 minutes, because there is time to go up in temperature. But you can see that on the right of the table, the reduction is maximum 2.9, sometimes 1.5. So we are far from the 4 logs to have a virucide effect. We really investigate in this kind of solution, because for Boisson instrument, you cannot swab something inside, or if you do it, you have to put out a lot of pieces. So it seems to be really useful to have a protocol which one will I would say, put safe all the bore of the instrument without manipulating too much. But at this time, we know that it could work in an oven like we could have in a factory, but it's difficult to transpose to a retailer, for example. So then is coming the module 5 about quarantine. So here you have on the left all the materials we tested. Each time we have a cross or V or T, it's a test we did. So mostly what we can say, it's the, we'll say, solid materials. All was good after 4 days, but I think it's better to take 1 day security. So we could recommend 5 days. And for paper, more complex like paper, we tested 2 different of paper, one from your copy printer and one called a bar writer used in music. And you can see that even 6 days after, there was a virus alive. And we also evaluated cans for weeds, and the same, it's better to recommend 7 days. So the last one, and I will try to go fast. This is a module 6 we did not do yet, because we observed during module 2 that the virus on African blackwood spontaneously disappear. So at first we were hoping that it was because of the chemicals inside the wood. After investigation, we did not find any virucide effect of constituent of the African blackwood against the Sars CoV-2. So it seems that the virus is going inside the wood. So now the question is to determine if the virus could go inside the wood and if it could remain infectious using different wood species used in wind instrument. So we would like to do this experiment on different species of wood, as African blackwood, but also boxwood and maple. And for that, we will need additional funding. So as a conclusion about the disinfection, all the disinfectants are not efficient in the same way against Sars CoV-2. Sars CoV-2 virus seems really temperature resistant, even at 90 degrees. The lifetime on SARS CoV-2 and materials used in musical instruments is variable. The rules of 70 hours that we heard sometimes could not be not understood as a universal quarantine reference from our experiment. But it seems possible to disinfect all musical instruments against COVID-19 following the result of our study. And we are going to make a scientific publication about this study. And in all cases, it is essential to ensure the proper maintenance of your instrument accessories to ensure regular cleaning.
Unmute myself, sorry. Yeah, all well, you'll have a full results, but for everybody, we made up these guidelines. You can see on the left, we translate all of them in English, so you can download them from the CSFI site in website. Sorry, it's been a great publishing success, as we have now almost 50,000 downloading of our documents. As you see, we put dates on them because we are updating them with the latest result. And the wood and brass wind instruments is actually being reviewed, and it will be available in a couple of days. We are very now interested in hearing your question, and please welcome to ask any question you want about this. I hope you had a good look with this presentation of our work. Please. No question written, said Coraline. Is there any question about our work?
Yeah, I think there are a few from my end. Actually, Steve had a question in the chat about the ultrasonic cleaning that a lot of our dealers use. So would there be any recommendation if an addition of cleaning solution in the water that's typically just used as clean water would help to make this a complete process of what they're doing anyway to the instrument?
Okay, I can try to answer. So we did not test ultrasonic bath, but if many retailers use it, it could make sense. My worry is about, okay, you will maybe put out the virus from the surface, but it will remain in the bath. So for sure, you should add disinfectant efficient against Sars CoV-2. But yes, it could work, but not only the ultrasonic bath. And if you would like to go further and test it, we could have a look about it. But if you use a disinfectant as the one we shown as efficient, it should work. But after, you have to see if there is neutralization with water or the thing you put in your bath.
Which of the disinfectants would you think would be most effective in that environment?
For sure, alcohol will be not good because they evaporated. One interesting thing, it's all the, I would say, chlorine derivative are really efficient against this virus. But the problem with the chlor, it's they don't like ferrous materials. So if it's pure brass, it will be okay. But if there is some stainless or iron-based materials, it could damage it. Then there is, it's difficult to say, but the dimethyl chloride, which one could be also efficient, but that I don't know if it could be stable in water. We should have a look, but then at least there is oxygenated water, but which one is for sure compatible, but as you see, it's not the more efficient against this virus.
Another question I had, Mikhail, is the heat treatment that, of course, as all the brass manufacturers were looking forward to that portion of the test. The plates that were used in the experiments were non-finished, right? They were raw copper, raw brass, raw nickel,
Yes.
with any lacquer on it. So is there any conclusion for lacquered instruments other than the rubbing techniques that were tested with the disinfectants? So lacquer has not been tried in heat, has it?
No, it was raw materials because we were thinking about the bore, the inside bore of the instrument, which one you cannot reach, and usually it's raw materials, so that's why we did it on raw materials. But for the varnish part, for sure, you can use a disinfectant, will not damage your varnish, and it's really efficient. Because maybe I can put it again, but on the quarantine module here, there is some varnish, okay, cellulosic varnish, shellac varnish, Linst oil varnish, and epoxy varnish, and polyurethane varnish. And you see here, anyway, the best one is polyurethane varnish. After 2 days, a virus in this condition were not alive anymore. Just to tell you that maybe I did not explain well, but each time we say the virus is alive or not, it's because after they do prelevement and they put in cells box and waiting 5 days. And if it's the cells replicate, it means he's still infectious. And if not, it means he's dead.
What's the difference between paper 1 standard and paper 2 Bärenreiter?
So the paper one is the one you use for make print, and
Okay.
the second one is I'm not specialist. Maybe Fanny could speak more about it, but it's paper used in musical edition, as I understood.
Yeah, it's a most usual music sheets for orchestras. So they actually gave us a real score, music score, to have a look at it. And we were very disappointed at the end because everybody hoped that with 1 day or 2 days of quarantine, it could be enough, and it's not at all enough. So it's a bit of a disappointment, but yet 1 week is fine.
Just to say, we also tried a third paper, which one was a historical paper. And but we were not able to get result because we were not able to take virus again even after 30 minutes because it was too much porous.
Yeah, for this material, actually, it seems quite an easy module just to put virus and to wait and to come back and to see if it's still there. But for porous material, it's very difficult actually to get the virus back, to extract the virus back and to see if it's alive. And so it was quite a technical challenge for the people we worked with, and they were very proud to do it. And this is most probably why you have very different results about paper and the quarantine time all over the world. I think there's a lot of different techniques to do that, but these are a very sure and fine technique. And well, we cannot say that if you wait less than 7 days, it's really safe, but that's only what we can say.
And just to add that it was, you have got the test condition on the right, so it was temperature, I will say room temperature 19 to 21 degree, and relative humidity between 50 up to 60%. And for sure, if you put more humidity or less temperature, it could be changed the time.
A bit, yeah. Okay, are you okay with that, or do you want us to discuss more about it? Okay, so maybe we can move on part 2. So part 2 is on instrumental and vocal practice. The aim was to characterizing emission by singer and wind instruments with CFD simulation about and to see about spatial propagation. So for this part, you see, well, it was CSFI with ITEM, with Les Forces Musicales, the Union of Opera and Orchestras in France, and with Crampon, of course. We had some scientific partners, 3 companies, ADER, which specializes in aerosol, Andeo is doing CFD simulation, and RSN, which is the Institute of Radio Protection and Nuclear Security. And for this part of the program, we were sponsored by public fund from the Minister of Culture and the Paris area, Paris region, and then some fund from a foundation called Bettencourt Schuler and Audience. And this is your turn, Michael.
Okay, the schedule of study. So at first we tried to do a first campaign in a wild condition environment. I would say we did that last September at Philharmonie de Paris in a research room. And I think we were really optimistic during this first campaign, and we wanted to test a lot of different things with a lot of different musicians. And strong from this first campaign, we did a second campaign last December, so at the Institut de Radio Protection de Sûreté Nucléaire, this time in a clean room environment. This means environment without any particles in the air. And the second time we choose to focus on less instruments but than the first one. And we also did CFD simulation to see the propagation of droplets through airflow escaping instrument or singers, or during a collective practice and different kinds of room since September 2020 and until now. So for the real condition measurement, we did measurement about 24 individuals. So you can see on the table, we did trumpet, tuba, oboe, saxophone, flute, clarinet, baritone singers, tenor singers, alto singer, soprano singers. We asked them to do different activities for the wind instrument. We wanted to make comparison between the bells, the tone holes, the mouthpiece when you blow inside without the body instrument, and we asked them also to blow inside without sound and playing. And thanks for James and the team of Colorado, because we had the scores they used for their own study at the beginning. So they played Host EB for COVID-19 study, and singers, we did measurement only on the mouth, but we asked them to read, to sing, and to do exercise. And they also singing Oli Oli and the warm-up, which one is also music from the other study. So it was quite a big room, about 500 cubic meters with ventilation, and we used aerosol measurement techniques allow us to measure particles between 8 nanometers and 18 microns. Okay. So just this slide is to show you that there is really a big difference between the entire instrument. This is a mouthpiece only. So this is a figure from alto saxophone. So on the left, you see the temporal evolution of the particle concentration. So here, maybe if I put, sorry, yeah. Here you can see this is when the musician blow in the mouthpiece, and we measure directly after the mouthpiece. And here it's we make the measurement, sorry, on the bell. And on the graph on the middle, you can see that what we measure from the bell, and in blue, this is the blank. It means it is the background. So we did not measure a lot of particles coming from the bell due to the musician playing. And on the right, you can see here in blue, this is the same background. And here, this is the concentration, the number of particles we got just after the mouthpiece. So that means that the particle concentration is 10 times more at the mouthpiece compared to the bell. So there is a lot of deposit inside the instrument and liquid evaporation also. And we were not able to have a significant measurement near the K. We also measured the exhaled airflow weights of a singer on the left, but also of a different wind instrument. So for the singers, you can see there is a disparity. So in fact, they blow, or they sing or blow for 1 minute. So the volume is here is in liter per minute. So what we can say, it's an average singer is around 10 liters per minute. And compare, there is more difference in wind instrument, because you can see that saxophone is a little bit more, trumpet it's still around 10 liters per minute, clarinet 2, but tuba, they could rise 25 liters per minute. And at the opposite, there is oboes, they are about 3 or 4 liters per minute. So this is the air they put inside their horn, but they also have to respire, so to breathe, sorry. So when they don't blow inside the horn, they blow outside. And here you can see that the musician, for example, here he uses his mouthpiece. So this is really the air with vibration of air and not blow directly in the tube. And here with a double reed. So we needed also this data to be able to do CFD and also to convert some conversion stuff. So we used the CFD mainly to see the pathway of particles through a wind instrument. So it's a numerical approach. We did at this time 5 instruments: alto sax, flute, clarinet, oboe, and trumpet, using Dassault system software. And what we can say mainly, which one could be general, it's all big droplets. I would say 50 microns or more will stick on the walls of the instrument, and the smaller droplets, which one we could call aerosol, 5 microns and less, will follow the main airflow of the instrument. Which one, it's quite different from an instrument to another one. For example, here you can see the oboes. So there is a air and flow. The color is the speed of the flow. And you can see that, for example, because it's conical, there is no airflow to the walls. And so that means even if the K are opened, the particles will follow the main flow and with the bells. That's why there is less particles near the tone holes. What things we still a question we don't have answered, is it possible to re-emission? I mean, if there is fluids on the walls, could it be re-emitted by the airflow? We are quite skeptic, but we don't really know. And for example, for the smaller particles, it will depend of the geometry, because if there is a more curve, they could impact and stay on the walls. So we tried also to do a collective measurement. So we did a 1 hour practice in the same research hall, and we did measurements really close at 50 centimeters, 3 meters, and far 8 meters. We did it with Orchestre de Chambre de Paris, and then with Professional Shore. high death. But as you can see, this is the graph. In fact, you cannot see a difference between when they were singing or playing compared to before or after. So what we can say is just that no increase in the number of particle or accumulation phenomena measured under this test condition. So we also simulated this collective practice, and the simulation we did shown that the thermal effect of the bodies and the ventilation of this room were predominant. So no added particle accumulation of the collective practice could occur in this configuration: volume of the room, air weight exchange, and number of participants. We also used CFD because we were asking ourselves, is the measurement we are doing adapt to see, for example, the granulometry of air particles or not. So with that, we could have better knowledge of the limit, and we understood that the collection tube should be placed at maximum 4 centimeters from the main source and should be fixed. Collection tube should be shorter than 30 centimeters, and measurements are more valid in number instead of granulometry or weight due to the evaporation of liquid droplets.
So I will take the following about this part. So like Michael said, we used CFD simulation to best optimize our protocol of measurement in the second campaign in a clean room. So like he said, the clean room is a place where the environment is controlled and we have really almost negligible background concentration. So we can know that what we measure is due to the practice and it's not already present in the room. So as we see on the left, so we minimized the length of the tube and we made it very fixed. So we don't have an impact of the distance between the sampling points and the emission point. So the head of the singers were fixed and the clarinets also was fixed on a kind of stand. So about the protocol, we tried to did it quite similar between clarinet and singers, but we didn't want to this time to do many instruments, but rather do more participants to assess the impact of inter-individual and intra-individual variability. So we had 5 clarinet players and 5 singers, and the task was always to hold the note for 10 seconds. On the clarinet, we did 3 different fingerings, so more or less tone holes closed. And for the singers, we did the same note, but with 2 different sound intensities with a 15 decibel difference between both. And we also wanted to assess the efficiency of some protection device. So for the clarinets, we use a 2 layers bell cover. And for the singers, we had a surgical mask. So we did every time 5 repetitions with protection and without protection. You can change slide, okay? So here we see on the left the clarinet, which is fixed. So we have the sampling point always at the bell, and we had a sonometer to be sure we do the same intensity level for each participant. And we had so two different measuring device. So it was similar to the one we use in the Philharmonie. So we have a very wide range of size measured. So the CPC is for more fine particles. So starting from 7 nanometers, and we go up to 18 microns with the second device. So for reminding, the virus is approximately 100 nanometers. So we go even beyond the size of the virus alone. So here is an example of the proceeding of one measurement for one clarinetist, for example. So it's the same, it's always the time evolution, but on the upper part is for one device on the fine particles, and on the bottom, it's the other device. And so we had every time 5 times without, with protection and then without. Okay, you can skip. So for the clarinets, we did 3 different notes, as I said. So on the left, you have a small representation. So the low E was with all the tone holes closed, or the BB was all opened. And we had also a note with half the tone holes closed. So on the right, you have an example of how we represent the data. So maybe it's not very nice to look at this way, but for us, it's a good way to show the dispersion of the values. So here also the upper part is fine particles and the lower part is the measurements from the other device. So there are different information we can have from this kind of graphs. First, all the unit is in particle per centimeter, per cubic centimeter, so it's the measurement unit. The first thing you can see is on the upper graph, for example, it goes on up to 1,000 particles per cubic centimeter, while the bottom one is up to 100. So you have a ratio from 10 to 20 between the finest size range and the biggest. So as we will also see later, it seems that we have more fine particles than bigger particles with the clarinet. We can also see for each clarinetist, we have first we have a difference between each individual for the notes, but you have also for each clarinetist a difference between the note played, and it's not always the same note that is the most emissive. And a good example, for example, on the clarinet 4, you have a very big dispersion even for the same note and for the same player. So you can see it's the variability is very important, and we should really be aware of that before making conclusions. Maybe you can skip to the next. So here we have also the same data represented, but this time it's also compared with the values without protection, because first it was only no, it was only without protection, and now it's also with protection. So it's the measures for the CPC, so the finest particles from 7 nanometers to 5 microns. What we see here is you have always more particles without protection than with protection, so which is a good news. So we were using a 2-layer bell cover with cotton and viscose, and the inside was made of polyester, so it was a commercial reference. So we have a very good efficiency of filtration for even for the fine particles, and especially on the BB and the G. It's also effective for the low E, so when you close all the tone holes and you force the airflow to go through the bell, it's a bit less efficient, but still have lower values than without protection. So here is a graph note. I'm done with this one. Here is an example of size distributions measured for the clarinet. So you have a presentation for the three notes played, the average for all the participants. So what we can see, the D50 is the median value, so it's quite average size. So we can see the particles we measure at the bell in our condition of measurement are always generally between 250 and 300 nanometer. And so on the right, we see also a comparison for the low E with and without protection. So the median value is a bit higher with the protection, but it's the same order of magnitude. Next slide, please. So here is some value on singers. So on the left, we have the fine particles, and the right, the bigger. So what is very clear, here we have the blue line is the background level, so it's about 1 particle. So what is very clear is with a surgical mask, you go directly back, always back to the background level, so we don't measure any over concentration due to singing when you wear a surgical mask. What we see also on the values without protection, so it's the SP. You can see we have quite the same, unlike the clarinet, we have quite the same order of magnitude between the the two devices. So we have similar amounts between both size range. We don't have more fine particles. What we should take care is that the measurement was made in front of the singer's mouth, so we don't have any data for the potential leaks on the side or above the mask. But what we can see for sure is that even for singing with wide open mouth, we have a very clear reduction of the emissions due to the mask. Okay, you can switch. For singers, we also assessed the effect of the acoustic intensity. So they couldn't do all the same level. So we just asked them to do 15 decibel difference between two essays. So what is very clear is first we do more. We have higher concentration when you sing louder. But also, not only you increase the number of particles, but you increase the number of large particles. So you tend to have a bigger, you raise 10 times the number of bigger particles and about 3 times the number of finer particles. So it's we already knew from other publication that the acoustic intensity had an effect on the emission rates, but here it's also confirmed on our measurements. You can skip, Michael. And so about the size distribution, on the left, we have a comparison in yellow, the low volume, and in green, the higher volume. So we have a similar, on the left, without protection, we have quite similar sizes, but on the right, for another singer, we can see this one did 3 different sound intensities, and it seems that the louder he sings and the bigger the medium range is. So, but we are always between 300 and 350 nanometers that's the average. So about how to conclude this work. So like Fanny said at the beginning, we are still, it's very evolutive knowledge, and we are still working on the analysis and the exploitation of these results. But what we can say for now is, first, we know from scientific literature that wind instruments do not generate very significant airflow compared to the airflow that already exists in the room, or the thermal effect, for example. We also know from our CFD simulation that the largest droplets, so approximately 50 microns or more, they tend to deposit on the walls of the wind instrument, and they could scream, so they are not airborne anymore this time. Also, the aerosol that are produced by the wind instrument on the cigars seems to be very small. So in our conditions, they seem to be less than 300 nanometer in average. We like to point out the very important variability between individuals, and also even for one same person, which is the reason why we are a bit skeptical to classification of instrument and comparison of 2 different instruments, because it's maybe too early to make comparison at this phase. But yeah, we prefer to consider all the instruments at once. We also confirmed the efficiency of a surgical mask for singers and 2-layer bell cover on the reduction of particles. So we are now writing 1 or 2 scientific publications that are currently being written and should be edited. And yeah, and the last point is that we like to collaborate with all the other teams that work on this problematic that is quite recent. So we really need to compile all the information and the knowledge on the topic. And we did a first meeting last week with the 6 or 7 main teams we knew that were working on the subject of aerosol measurement in the musical practice. So we plan to continue collaborating with them to consolidate the result and formulate the recommendations. The last slide, I think. Yeah. thank you very much for listening.
Okay, thank you, Milena. I've got a first question for you because you talked a lot about the size of the aerosols, and maybe you can explain us a bit, you or Michael, why is it important to think about the size of the aerosols? What do we know about it and what we don't know about it?
Well, the reason why we are doing this is not only for the pleasure of knowing what particles are emitted or what size they are, but it's really to make the link with the virus. And we know approximately that the Sars CoV-2 virus is about 100 or 120 nanometers. So at first we were a bit scared. We saw there is many particles emitted, but when we look at the size, we were really reassured to see they are quite small. So logically, we know that a particle that is less than the size of the virus should not be a risk. And then there is the big question that is still not resolved of what is the minimal size for a droplet to carry some virus and in order for it to remain viable in the air. And this question is really unknown for now by the scientific community by virologists or all the specialists. So that's why we were interested to know what is the average size of the particles, and we also would like to know, starting from which size we should consider that one particle is really dangerous, or if it's just a particular inoffensive one.
Okay, thank you, Milena. I've got another question is, do we know what type of materials were used for the bell covers? I think it was on the slide. Can you maybe?
It was written, but you can show. The inner part was polyester. It was a synthetic material, polyester. And the outside was 40% cotton and 60% viscose.
From bamboo. Okay, we tried only one type of bell cover. Okay, so this works. So you see there are really quite really a serious scientific world. What we do with that is we try to get serious knowledge, and then we work to make out of that some recommendation of practice, of good practice, of distanciation while playing. We also did an important work of looking at what was happening with orchestras and choirs, because in France, professional orchestras and choirs has been able to practice and to play since last summer. They had public from September till October. Since October, there's no more concert with public, but they can still on practicing. So for us, it's a good way of studying what is happening with the distanciation, and it's very reassuring because for wind instruments, for orchestras, obviously wind instruments players don't have masks. There are distance from September till October in Parisian orchestras. The distance between musicians was 1.50 meters, which is a bit less than the recommended distance. And we had no clusters, and we are very secure about that because we really had a look to all of them. Now there, with variant virus coming in and the pandemic going up again, they're more back to 2 meters in between each others, but still they're still practicing and there's still no clusters. For the choirs, the question was much more difficult because they were singing in September, October without mask and with 2 meters distance between them. I mean, this was professional choirs from operas, and they practice in big room, very professional rooms. And we had the bad chance to discover there's be quite a few clusters in the choirs in October in France. And we studied what was happening, and they were really strong on the protocol. So we discussed with them. And since that time, they're now mostly singing with a mask. And they are trying actually the different type of mask existing. And we are now doing a return of experience with them of what is their what model is good for them. It's not, they don't choose the same one. And since they use a mask, there's no more clusters. So they keep on distanciation, 2 meters distanciation and mask, and this is very strong and secure, even with intense practice as professionals do. So that's important. And with operas, for people, the soloist, obviously on some representation, they don't have mask, but then they do test beforehand. So you see, the scientific part of the work is also accompanied with a study of what is really happening in real life, and with all that we providing what we can provide as answer and recommendation. And we are very, very cautious of what we are saying and writing.
Fanny, may I ask a question?
Of course.
Is there a report that you can share about the cluster spreads with choir and no cluster spreads with orchestra? Is that something is there something written down about that?
We didn't make a public statement about it, but we've got a tableau, Excel sheet with all the documentation. I mean, but we at this stage, we mentioned that we did produce documents about vocal practice where we mentioned the problem of the clusters, but it was a bit difficult to actually write it down. This is a job we wanted to do, but it's still on our desk because, well, it's much more easy with orchestras because it's good news. And it's actually written down on our documents. I can I'll have a look and give you the most precise document we have about that. About choirs, it was much more difficult because, I mean, obviously the first part of the job was people being confident enough not to keep this for themselves, but sharing with us, and they shared everything. And so it's still a bit touchy, this subject.
Yeah, no, I agree, because we were doing the same thing in the States. We've got active surveys going on with bands in the collegiate level. We're about to do an active survey with bands and choirs in the high school space in the US, and that'll launch here later this week. I was just curious to see if there's a way we can correlate what's happening in France versus what we hope to find here.
I'm sure it would be very interesting, and as a private conversation, yes. we can make it.
Okay, that sounds great.
So I've got a question. Do you have any testing with musicians playing horns using the mask that have slot in them for mouthpiece? As far as I know, no, we didn't try the slot, the mask with slot. Actually, as we saw that in orchestras, professional orchestras, there was no real problem. We didn't get further with that. The question is, you see, our look is on professional musician, and I mean, we can expect them to follow protocols and recommendations very strongly, which is not the case with music school pupils. And we have a look also of what's happening in music school. It's much more difficult to get a proper look and to be very secure about that. As far as we know, we had only one case of a real cluster because of some kind of musical practice, because it was a choir practice, and it was last October, and we know about that one. But from that, apparently, from what we know, from September till now, the music schools are still they're still giving their course and they are open, except they only take children. They're not allowed anymore to take adults for their course. And with that, there's been some music school which has been shut down with clusters, but as far as we have been able to see that, it's never been linked with musical practice in itself. It's with the social life around, or in many cases, it was at school with kids coming from the school and going to the music school. And we could trace the cluster from the school, not from the music school. So it seems, and in France, there's much less work with band because they are very, very careful, but there's still some, and the kids are not using masks with slots so far. But I'm sure, James, we can go on discussing about that. And at the moment, we are just launching a CFD study on a room, a music school room, one small one for a small group and one a bit larger, 180 square meter, to give them more advice about how where to stand in the room and what is, well, what we can tell them about what is the best practice with 2-3 people in a very small room or more people in a bigger room.
Penny, I have one question that refers to the first part of the presentation today. And I may have asked the same question in an earlier stage of primary result presentations. The soap that has been tested is only referring to 2 brands, one being the Clint D soap and the other being the aerosol. And is there anything that would relate to the ingredients for those 2 types of soaps that would make it a fair recommendation for industrial soaps or household soaps?
I'll leave that to Michael.
Merci. To be honest, when I said it's complex formula, because it is, and even we could have the ingredient, the compounds, but you don't have the exact proportion. So we can go deeper in it to see if it will have something could make sense, but because of the additive and many things, it's difficult to answer. But what I can say, it's if you have time and you can swap, it will be definitively efficient, but it's not, it will be more than 3 minutes, you know. But it's a good news because at the beginning we were pessimistic about soap. And in fact, because of this kind of virus, you can really break his corona and he will kill it. And so I think, as you understood, what we tried to do, it's because you see also in the playing study, I would say, you see there is a lot of fluids going inside the instrument and could go away. So it's there is not at this time we don't really understand. I don't know you in US, but you in France, what is the really transmission modes. So we prefer to investigate in all modes. I mean, contact with fluids and aerosol, and we will see.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay, with all these results, we try to make, well, we have a guidance book for with instruments, which is being updated, but we're also working, we will be working in the coming weeks in making shorter documents with easy understanding answers, so far as we can have something secure to say. We will produce them in French and English. You already had the short, a short kind of Q&A documents about wind instruments. Please, we are very, we will be very interested if you have special questions or special remarks or recommendation about this document. so we can produce things as useful as possible for everyone. You see, we can't answer all questions. At some point, we think that after almost 1 year, we are not that far, but we have to remember that 1 year ago, we didn't know one single thing about all these questions. And one big question was, is it really very, very dangerous to blow in a trumpet? How tense do you have to stand away 10 or 12 meters away from the trumpet to be safe? And we made a lot of improvements in knowledge in that. All the studies, and that's why the team wants to work with everyone, we all look at a part of a question. And I think a big thing is, you saw we talked about variability, inter and intra-individuality. That is very important to understand, is when you make a study with only one musician and you make him play 1,000 times, there'll be variability in his own results. And then you take another person and it will be different again. And you can't say because he's short or big or tall or whatever, it's going to make something different. It's variability. So it's important to link all the results and to have a proper view of everything. But as it's very new, each team has its own methodology. And it's not that easy to link the results. So I think it's very good that everyone of the music world stand together to do these studies. And I think we'll have to think of how to keep some work being done, because the answer, even though we're all hoping that in a couple of months, we are out of this very terrible part of the pandemic with a vaccine going on, but still we have to keep something going on, so we have really secure and strong knowledge about these questions.
Thank you very much, Fanny and team. Michael,
Okay.
and that was an excellent summary of the Marseille study and the aerosol study. Thank you very much.
Okay, François.
Thank you.
François, I leave you to close the session, maybe. If so.
Are there additional questions or no more?
Me, I've got one.
Yes.
No, I see James is still here. I think they did also huge work with the Colorado study, and I don't know if the perspective is far from ours, but if you want to say a few words about it, I would be glad.
Yeah, no, I was actually pretty excited to see what you had found in today's presentation, because Mark and I were chatting in the background, and we found that there's a lot of good similarities that are building up, and I think that's really encouraging to see that we've approached it from two different directions and are coming up with somewhat similar results. And so I think that was encouraging for Mark and I to see on the back end. And then I had texted Franny as well to hook you up with Yelena at the University of Maryland for the CFD modeling components. And so she does a lot of the CFD modeling work, and I think that'd be great to have those notes kind of shared between the two studies. So I really appreciate all the work today. And there's a graphic I'm hoping I can steal from you guys too, but I'll talk to you about that later.
Thanks. Yes.
Thank you for all your great work. This was amazing today.
I do have another question. I'm going to put you on the spot here, Bill Matthews, from the association. Was this helpful for you as well? Because you deal with a lot of stores that do rental programs and so on.
Can you start again, Betty? Actually, I didn't get your question.
I said I was asking Bill from the association. I'm going to put him on the spot, and I said, did he find this useful as well? Because I know you, of course, are aware of the study in the US and so on, but I know you're dealing with a lot of instrument rental stores where there's, tons of instruments going back and forth. Did you find this useful?
I did find it useful, and I appreciate you inviting me to today. and I'm anxious to share what I've learned here today as well. Our industry, very difficult. There's been a lot of unknowns, obviously, for all of us. I think that being able to share this with our members and repair technicians worldwide will be a benefit. And we also look for more, further coming information. One of the things that I've kind of pointed out internally, instrument repair technicians have been doing this since there's been instruments, right? And I'm not. We're a very, very, very small organization. I mean, I have one employee that helps me run the place, the whole thing. So we have no ability to do this type of work financially. But I think, and I don't know. I have talked to several medical professionals that I personally work with, that are working with patients every day with COVID. And I find it interesting that in our history of musical instrument repair, through all the viruses and the flu and all the things that have come across our benches, as a rule, technicians have not been affected. So the cleaning practices that we already have in place, that we've had in place for decades and decades and decades, seem to work. We obviously, like everyone else, have been taking a lot of precautions, and the primary one being quarantine. Quarantine is still utilized by a lot of technicians that I speak to. I think as time goes on and we get more comfortable with the situation, the quarantine time has shortened. But all in all, cleaning methods that have been used, I think somebody mentioned earlier, ultrasonic cleaning. We've been using that for 20 years, some of us. And prior to that, just dipping, just in different types of degreasers, which kind of, to my understanding, breaks down the cellular hold of the virus. Obviously, as Mikhail talked about, soaps and all these things are so different, and temperatures are different, and all these things matter. But I think in general, what I've noticed in my close to 40 years in repair is that standard practice of cleaning works. It's fascinating to see the science behind it for me, and I'm excited to share that with our technicians world. But again, thank you, Betty, for including me in this group today.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much to everyone. Hopefully we can have a good life in a few months from now. I know US are pretty much ahead, and it's great because it's the biggest market in the world. So hopefully all this we can forget a bit, but it would be very important to have this as a solid basis. If anything else appears, and of course we still need it by today. So thanks again, because NAM and Consumer greatly contributed to this study, and without you guys, it was not possible to do. So thanks very much. Merci beaucoup.
And you had the results in advance. It's normal because you were partners, because tomorrow we are doing a presentation on instruments, musical instruments for a French world. And in a couple of weeks, we are doing another presentation, French presentation for about voice practice, vocal practice. So we are still very busy.
Fanny, I just want to reinforce a bit the message of François. to thank you very much to have given your trust in the initiatives that we took, and to have given your confidence. It was, I think, very important for the industry to appear as a collective action. It was very important for us to be together to show these results. Also very important to get some financing of the study. So you have seen that we have been able to get some sponsors. The total budget of the studies was much higher than at the beginning, but really due to the commitment of the industry that this has been able to be done. So, and your support was highly appreciated. So thank you very much. And I'm very happy to see that we are able to work together for some projects.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
the French.
On behalf of Consumer, I mean, we really have to thank not only the researchers, but thanks to all of you at Buffet Crampon for your leadership. And you are the ones who really initiated this effort a year ago. And we thank you very much for your leadership there and for including us.
I agree. I will say the same about Buffet Crampon. It's been a wonderful initiative from them. Okay.
Have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
See you, Bill. I'll send you an email, Bill. Good to see you, man.
Ok. Bon, ben, voilà.
J'arrête l'enregistrement.